All right, we are live. Evolved Life Live. That's what I decided to call it because we're having fun. Hey, Ian.
Well, great to see you, Jeremy. I mean, it's just you and I have had so many amazing conversations. That we have a podcast coming soon, and I'm just so excited to do this in Evolve Life Live with you and have these conversations. I think we'll be doing a lot more of them, and just grateful to have you on here. So, and doing this and sharing this knowledge.
To be here and get to play with you. That view is amazing from the window behind you. Costa Rica beauty.
Yeah, I love it here. It makes it so much easier to stay present and focused because the only noises I really get are of nature, and I just let the nature nurture me. Yeah, and the sights are just so beautiful. So thanks for acknowledging it.
Yeah. Just feeling.
Yeah, and everybody watching, just take here. I'll move to the side a little bit, and you can see. I don't know how well the colors come across on the camera. I mean, the sky is just lit with pinks and blues. It's just something amazing. We got monkeys in the trees just behind me. The birds were going crazy watching the sunset. It's been really, really amazing today.
I can't wait to visit. I can't wait to visit.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. All right, let me double check our working. It should be working. Yep.
And do we see who's watching right now and all that stuff when people pop in? Does it display that for us with this?
It does. Yeah. And I can actually put on people's comments as well if when we do. Currently, we're live. No viewers yet, but I'm sure they'll pop on as we keep going here, especially if we magnetize.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Do you have from Evolve Life? Do you have that? No?
Well, I missed that last part. What did you say?
Do you have this spreadsheet open with the members and all the questions they asked as they came in? And
yes, I do.
Okay. Yeah. Great.
Yes.
So just everybody, so before we started this live feed, we started with, we put out an intention. And Jeremy shared conscious polarity. And I'll let him explain that in a moment. And I'm just here to have fun. I've been enjoying my days. And every conversation with Jeremy is like a awakening. It's like another awakening. Like you can have conversations in multiple dimensions at the same time and be able to reel back and become very earthly. Most of the time we live up in that imaginative zone that can't really see until somebody makes a painting or something like that of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I think I heard you. To answer your question, there's like a new realization about the play, about the game for me, that I'm uncovering new layers of kind of playfulness with what is brand, character, self-image, all of that kind of stuff with myself and with my creativity, with my self-expression. And what I mean by like conscious, integral polarization is I've never really given a lot of stock to self-image. It's something that I've spiritually, I understand is not who I am, and it's like, but it is, but it isn't. Like I understand the dynamics of it, and now I'm starting to play with it more. And so there's like old paradigm polarization is like politics. It's like red, blue, left, right, like, and it's very divisive. It's very divisive, all for the conflict of it and for the separation of what it means and what it's actually doing for the battle and the war between people and
the duality.
Yeah, the duality.
The right, exactly. The wrong, the good, the bad, the whole game, the drama unfolding. Yeah,
exactly. And so I found my place best like in terms of like an aversion to conflict by being very neutral or being very balanced. I can see both sides on anything because I just like, that's how malleable I am, is I can understand, I can have empathy for both sides of the thing. And it found myself creatively not really voicing anything. I mean, I create content and I create things, but in terms of the potency of like really igniting people, really getting people to question themselves, really getting like poignant on like what the power of words can do, I really didn't utilize that because I didn't want conflict. And so when I really step into brand and self-image and character and playing with what those things mean and stepping into that power, I see that there is a lot of where places to go when I fully have playfulness with polarization and expressing something with powerfully, knowing full well that it might ruffle people's feathers. When growing up, I wanted anything but that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so I'm feeling like we're gonna find maybe some disagreement in a few things that may expand both of our conscious awareness, hopefully coming up today.
Cool.
So that's interesting, and I completely honor and respect that because I like to hold multiple paradigms in my view. Right, so I could be like, is this a good thing or a bad thing? And when I look at it, it can be both. It can be either one. It's just my own interpretation of it, depending on the perspective I have of it.
Sure.
So in every single conflict and the outcome, there's always a winner and there's always a loser, depending on the perception of it. However, both individuals can be winners or losers, depending on the perspective they put into it. And for me, the way to win is not to be right with what my original perspective was. It's to choose the perspective that empowers me to move forward in my life and helps me on my quest. And whatever my journey is going to be going forward. So therefore I can be completely unattached to whatever I think is true in this moment. And it's a very interesting place to play. So I think does that speak to some of what you were talking about there?
Yeah.
And I'm gonna go turn the lights on. I just realized the sun is set. So
that was really fast. It seemed like it was just out.
Yeah, it just like goes like that. So I'm still here though. You can talk to me. I got the earbuds. So talk to me.
Yeah, it is a power of imagination and quantum kind of malleability. It's definitely because the old paradigm construct is around the old paradigm construct of self-image and identity and all of that is based around like you have your belief structure and you can't think beyond it. Like it's like not allowed to carry paradoxical thoughts that put your belief structure into question. And it is a power to be able to like hold multiple simultaneous, sometimes paradoxical ideas that counter each other, but can still cohabitate, you know?
Yeah. So maybe we bring this down to earth a little bit. Like I know that in the past, when somebody would be disagreeing with how I was behaving, I would be like, that's just how I am, right? That's just who I am. And I didn't even have the concept that, and I would fall into the category of like, well, I'm just a direct person. I'm just going to speak directly to you. And I'm not just going to like put kids gloves on and coddle you because that's not who I am. And now in this place, that this new paradigm, I can choose the role. So every single day, I do a ritual, which I know you're familiar with from the Heaven on Earth book, which is who am I being? Who am I today? Who am I going to show up as? And playing with who I am being and setting the tone early in the day, just commit to being that person for the day, completely changes how my day is perceived. So today, I think my day was actually at play. So I came to this energy It was a creativity and play. I came to this with an idea of like, okay, we're going to create something really unique and do it in a very playful way. And that's how I do that process. Is there a way that is there an example you have where like you were stuck in one way of thinking of who you were and then been able to transcend that?
Yeah. I think the transition has been kind of like building off what I was saying, like going from more of a impersonal kind of just more, what's the word? I would say it would be more of like a transition from impersonal to playing more personal things with who. So going from maybe it's more of a grounding, or just like playing with. Before, I didn't feel like there was an authenticity with making who I'm being like a noun, if that makes sense. Like I didn't feel like it was authentic to say that I'm going to be more of a businessman today than a artist, or more of a scientist than I felt like that it like limited me or something like that to like decide on a character for the day. Mm-hmm. And it was more like, no, I want to feel powerful. I want to like, it was more of the verb than the noun, if that.
Yeah. Okay.
And now I'm feeling that transition over into, getting to play with the character more, learning more about like what a brand actually is, like what a personal brand actually is in terms of a self-image that is being presented, that is not necessarily who I am, but is who I am at the same time. And that like one of the things that actually I learned recently through Amanda Cromer, who does like dark branding. You ever heard of like dark branding before? I'm still learning about it. Like it's something new, but she talked about embracing and finding the areas of tension in your life that you've kind of like maybe smoothed out or put under the rug, or the paradoxes. Like all of those things, like if you start to embrace those things, they are your brand. Like the things that you think are so counter to your like what you experienced in life versus what you are now, and like you're trying to like leave that stuff out of your expression or who you are, is actually the basis of what makes your brand so appealing in terms of personal branding. And because I say this from the place of, I look at business and entrepreneurship or solopreneurship. The human is going to be the brand in the future. The human is the brand. Like you can see it. YouTube. A person is a channel, and instead of companies, it's people. Like that's where we're moving towards. And so I feel that shift, and so I do understand that brand, even though it isn't me as the divine, infinite creator, like. It is just a sliver of it, but it is important in a sense of being embodied and then playing the game. It's playing the game.
Yeah, well, yeah, who I am and who I'm not are equally as important, right? Because they're dividing that, which goes back to the polarity that you started the conversation with, right? A conscious polarity, and having the awareness of the polarity on both sides and who I show up to be and who I am not going to be. Yes. And having that duality gives it the oneness, actually, because it's whole. It's that existence and the non-existence. So to take this like down to earth for people that are on Evolve Life, there's so many people that join this group and are thinking about their identity or entrepreneurship, how are they making money, and who, like, what's going on. It's also with the relationships too. Like, who am I showing up as in my relationships, in every single relationship, not just the intimate one? Like, who am I being is a question that just rattles through my head all the time, especially when there's disharmony in some area. Because I put myself as part of my beingness is to be able to be the observer, to be God watching, to do it without like trigger, without charge. And then when there is a trigger or a charge, then I get to it's a reminder for me to say, okay, who am I being in this moment? Am I being open and receptive to a new possibility, or am I just putting up walls? So in a career, for example, I could show up to work not liking my job and being upset with my boss and being like a bratty child, right? And that's who I would be being. I don't want to do what I'm being told to do because I just don't want to be told what to do. But I go to this job all the time that I swear I hate, yet I refuse to leave. I don't look at any of the great stuff that's actually happening as a result of it. Like my contribution, I'm not even appreciating my contribution to the company. So therefore I'm going to give less to the company, and I'm just going to like go beat down the clock like the way I did in school, right? I'm just going to wait till the clock gets to 5 o'clock and I'm out of here. I'm just going to go through emotions, just do enough to stay under the radar, manipulate anything so I don't really have to contribute, instead of looking at the business that I'm part of. I'm part of this entire ecosystem, and showing up and saying, okay, you know what, today I'm going to make change in the world. I'm going to have impact. So if I'm dealing with a customer, then I'm going to make sure that they are leaving the conversation like happy. Like I'm getting paid to make sure other people are happy. If I don't deal with customers and I deal with coworkers or vendors, I go with the same mindset. Like, okay, how do I make this situation one where I'm going to leave anybody that comes into my field in a better place than when they started? They might have more information. They might have a deeper emotional connection to who they are, or feel better about themselves, feel better about the situation. I could do any number of things, or I could be completely unaware of it and make them feel horrible. Or I could intentionally choose consciously to even make them feel horrible. Now, who am I being when I do that? And that's always a reminder for me to come to that natural state of my intention, whether it's what I set for the day or I set for my life. Right. So a lot of times in my life, I didn't even think about this. But once I started thinking about who I'm being before I went into work, then all of a sudden the shift started happening. That's when the manager started seeing me and say, oh, this guy's a leader. That's when my employees started coming, coworkers started becoming like my employees, because they started following me around, because they're like, oh my gosh, every time I'm around this guy, I feel better when I leave, and I get the information that was promised to me. I get it with precision. I get it when I was told it was going to be gotten. I get responses quickly, and I get a vibration, an attitude of gratitude or appreciation that lifts me up. And when I started doing that in my work life, then all of a sudden I moved to the top in sales, and all of a sudden I had people move in their chairs to come sit next to me around my desk. And then months later, I was like, I'm starting my own company. It happened so quick, and my confidence grew like this. And when I started the company, people just gravitated to me. All of a sudden I had like 15 people that wanted to work for me. And when they did, they came into work on the mission to fulfill the vision. I didn't know about declarations at that time, but it was them coming in, and they were following me because I was showing up in that way of being that I intended to. And I could have chosen any way, any intention, any vision, and it would have attracted the right types of people because I was in that state. So for anybody out there that's like, oh, I want my career, I want to make more money, think about this as the attitude showing up. Who am I being? Who am I not going to be? These dualities are very important, looking at it, and then consciously choose that in every single moment. It may click immediately. Like for me, it took a couple of weeks of practice. It could take years for somebody. It could take a quantum instant. And I didn't even know, like somebody didn't tell me to do this. It wasn't until I looked back and I was like, oh, that's where the shift came, because I showed up in this other way. So that works in the business life, that works in the family life, the friendships. even at the gym and health and fitness. What am I eating? Every single area of life. This being, this who am I being, who am I not being, is like a key component.
Yeah.
So talk to me about it. I just kind of.
Yeah, I had a question because I love words, and like really the subtleties of words. What's the difference between vision, intention, and declaration?
Okay, so this is how I relate to these words and the vibration of them, and we could look at even the etymology to actually to really get clear on it, where the root of the word, right? So vision, that word is like literally to see. And vision is seeing into the future. If you look up the definition, look back at the etymology, I'm creating an envisionment statement. It's like I see into the future like a possibility, right? So that's like, okay, so I'm gonna, in 10 years, $1 million a year. That's a vision. Now, a declaration would be actually bringing that into the now. When I declare something to be true, it's actually now in this moment true. So I believe it's actually a French word, and it's escaping me the etymology of declaration. I can look it up. But that's actually the act of making it real in the now. So with the declaration, it's like a declaration of marriage. I now pronounce you man and wife is a declaration of marriage. You're not married until that declaration happens, until those words are spoken in that way. It's not like you will be, I see you guys married in 5 years. That would be a vision. So that's where I look at the difference in those two words. Now, intention to me is now this pointing myself into a direction. And I think looking up the etymology would be even really helpful here. However, it's me actually now making a choice that is going to be my vision or become something that I declare at some point in time. It's like I'm now pointed in the intention to take an action, or I think it's actually usually with an action. And I believe intention comes from in touch, intact. If I remember correctly.
Origin, intender, Latin, intentio, stretching, purpose.
Yeah, so I'm stretching towards that purpose.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. That's cool. Love etymology. It's good fun.
Yeah, so when I look at the definition of words in like Google's first thing, to me it's bullshit. Like it's got some kind of perversion in the way it's being used in today's form. Yeah. When I go back to the root of it, then I can see what the true vibration is. Like the word want actually comes from the word lack. It means to lack.
That, yeah.
Like what? Like, and I'm sitting here saying I want something, which means I lack something, which means I cannot have it because I'm already believing that I lack it. It's like I've just put a wall up into what I intended to create in my vision or declare into the now. And there's so many words that are used so commonly that are like misused, and they're actually putting up these illusions. Thoughts?
Oh, you nailed it. You nailed it. I was looking through the spreadsheet here, and just getting.
So the spreadsheets, any of the members, anybody that signs up, we ask you questions about what is important to you. So this is coming right from what you guys were asking for, and what you're asking about. And you feel free to write comments in here, and we will we'll bring it up now or bring it up into another time.
Let's start with what I see actually a lot here in terms of what area of your life would you like to experience the most improvement. I see a lot of like big picture thing, big picture. So they just say spirituality. So let's start there. Let's start with, if someone's looking at, if they're approaching this spirituality, like it's like a whole silo turf in of itself in our imagination, like spirituality, and it's this like untamed grassy kind of hill of like unknown and like woo woo and all the stigmas and the religious and all of that stuff. And they're just like, I would like to grow spirituality, and I want to get better at spirituality. Like, how can they notch down from that super general, how can they start to notch down to like enter the realm and start to cross the rational into the irrational, or the left brain into the right brain? Because that's really how I look at it. The spirituality is very much the right brain. It's the creativity, it's the imagination, it's irrational. It's not exactly logical sometimes. So how would you help someone start to taper down from just the macro spirituality to let's ground it down, or let's get more specific kind of thing?
Yeah, and this is kind of a different viewpoint on it. We talked about that a little earlier, and those will expand both of us. So great. So first thing I would do is I would talk like in a general conversation. If I was talking to one person, the question I might ask them more questions to specify.
Sure.
It's measuring where am I at, first of all. Like where am I at in my understanding of things, and how much access do I have to my truth, like a deeper truth. So what I found for me, my experience is anything that's in the 3 dimensions is a reality, or a physical reality. Anything that is in space or time, right? So that's the way that I experience it. So the window behind me, I see it, I can touch it, I can feel it.
5 senses.
The 5 senses. If those are being used, then I'm operating in the physical plane. Even though in higher dimensions, I can still actually access those dimensions. I can hear something when I recall it in my memory, right? So once I enter the realm of the mind, whether it's rational or irrational or emotional, we might say those are maybe kind of opposites. Mm-hmm. Now I've already moved out of the 3rd dimension, because I can't see it, I can't taste it, I can't touch it, I can't smell it, even though I might be able to create the sensation with my mind. Like what I have going on in my mind, you can't see unless I paint a picture of it. I could attempt to do it with words, and we could think we're talking about the same thing, but chances are what I said is probably not what you heard. What I saw is probably not what you see. It's just, this blew my mind when I started realizing this, when I started responding to people saying, instead of saying, no, you said da, 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 I started saying, what I think I heard you say was boom, 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 boom. And they'd be like, no, this is what I said. And I'm like, whoa, like this is, I swear I heard something totally different, but I was hearing it through my lens, right? So the first thing is just to like discern between the 3 dimension that normally I operate in, and then realize that I'm already spiritual just by the fact that I'm experiencing thought. And once I start realizing, okay, thought can't really be measured. I can measure like brain waves. I can measure electricity, and I can look at neural pathways and blood flow, but they are just a response to actually something greater, a greater force. Mm-hmm. It's a higher dimension. So once I start to recognize that anything in thought as that another realm, as another dimension, that I'm already entered my spirituality. And the thinking doesn't occur in the brain. The brain is just a perception mechanism. It's an antenna and a like one that receives and sends out information. Mm-hmm. It's all it is. It's a monitoring unit. So I was taught that everything was stored in the brain, and you got to measure everybody's brain to see like how somebody's so smart and stuff like that. It's actually, the size of the brain doesn't really matter. They can find correlation, but not causation in there. So it actually extends beyond that. So now once I'm in that spiritual realm, then I now have access to greater spiritual epiphanies and starting to realize that actually this whole body, the whole spine is a connection. Everything that runs along the spine, all these organs, there's more neurons and activity in the gut and the heart than there is in the brain. Sure. And the brain can send out frequencies to a certain distance, whereas the heart does for like 10 times the distance. So somebody could actually feel like the magnetic sphere of the heart, and I don't remember what the numbers are off the top of my head, so I'm not going to just make shit up. So what are you thinking?
So I think I come from the land of skepticism. So I had to ladder into this or bridge into this very linearly at first, because you come from a highly religious background, right?
Well, no, I mean, I grew up raised Roman Catholic.
Yeah.
But some didn't feel right about it the whole time I was doing it.
Gotcha.
Because it was full of contradictions of like, you have free will, but you're going to hell.
Yeah. So spirit and then spirituality, like the reality of spirit, like the suffix is ality, like into like it's a reality, right? I was just looking it up. So it's reality. So spirituality to me is the search for spirit. It's the search for spirit in reality. Or, in other words, the seeking for truth. And coming from the land of skepticism, where there was no spirit. So going back to like school, I had no school spirit. Like I had no sense of
either.
Yeah. Wow. There. I had no sense of connection to the community, the forced community of school spirit. And so when I had an awakening experience and I saw a greater reality, all of a sudden I became attracted to spirituality because it was a search for something that I couldn't see with my five senses. Mm-hmm. It was a search for something deeper. And so that's why I look at the jump or the leap from rationality to irrationality as in when there is no spirit, when you disbelieve spirit, or when you are skeptical or cynical of spirit, you are very much locked in a silo of science that is the left brain. And in rationality, logic and rationality. Now, spirituality started to open me up to insights and realizations that would start to connect where logic and emotion didn't connect. It started to make those connections. So that all of a sudden, I was starting to get in touch with the things over here in the right brain that are more creative and more imaginative and more outside the box, more irrational, more, no, it's feeling, not thinking. It's the difference between thinking and feeling something is experiential versus information, or wisdom and information. And so the more that I did that, the more that I saw that the imagination as the infinite container of the brain represents science as the left brain, as the silo of rational linear thought, spirituality as the irrational and nonsensical, not the five senses kind of visioning, feeling, experiencing things, but they can't cohabitate unless you have the philosophy that links them together. And so that's why I look at them as the left brain and the right brain. And then the bridge between the hemispheres is philosophy, because it's the philosophy that allows logic to connect to the emotion. And then the depth of emotion is feeling.
Interesting. And I think I experienced it very similar. There might be subtle changes or differences. Mm-hmm. I think it's maybe more how I would describe it. And I'm vibing with everything you're saying. And I would say that, yes, that left brain would be that rational, logical way, masculine. It's that masculine presence. It's that which has been so dominant in our society, at least what I grew up in and what I've experienced.
Yeah.
And the feminine, the irrational or really emotional, which is that right side of the brain, the creative force, right? Whereas the left brain is like, I'm putting ends to things. I'm measuring things. I'm saying this is enough. This is good. This is bad. Whereas the feminine is just like a woman just always creating, like the womb. It's that creative force. And both are equally as important. There's a balance between the two. And that's what you're calling philosophy of that bridge. It's actually, I wouldn't even say it's just a bridge. It's actually the fusion of those two, being able to live in a place saying, okay, I can measure these things, but it's not the whole picture. I also have these things to consider, and these things are valid. And this is the act of creation. This may be what is in my current awareness, in my rational, my left brain. And that's like that, well, I can measure everything and I can prove it to be true. But then the moment that I let the creative juices, the feminine side of me, create more of something, this becomes completely gone for a moment. For a moment, and then I can come back and measure it, and it may have subtle differences because I've now created something new or brought something new to my awareness. It's not necessarily creating, but it's the access to create something in my awareness, bring something to my awareness. So when the fusion of these two start to happen, then some magic happened for me. So the left brain was, okay, and I might even say the whole much of that my brain that I was using was understand my heart was under my mind, which made it an understanding. And then once I started to be able to use this creative access and the right brain and use both of them, then also it gave me an overstanding where my heart, what I felt to be true in my heart between the two, this philosophy that I could now hold, my heart was over my mind, and this was more true. And then when I had the two of them looking at each other, it kind of gave me this whole new access, which I call an inner standing, which is like a deeper knowingness of something to be true or something more to be possible and present. And that was kind of the realm it was for me. It was, there's that the stage where I was searching for the spirit, like, what is that thing? And let me kind of grasp it. And then it was like connect with that spirit. And then it became, okay, and I believe this is a piece of the path to ascension, is being able to be and embody that as spirit, to be able to use the soul as a vessel versus this body. And that's when I can actually go for like real journeys into my imagination and bring back knowledge that can then be used for me to construct how I like to live my life.
Right.
How's that feel for you?
That feels good. And like to build off of that, the Like, I love the word fusion. I love the word fusion. It's like, because that's what it is. It's fusion. So the horizontal fusion is actually also represented as a vertical traversal. Like that's the ascension. That's the ladder of frequency through the dimensions is also, so the horizontal axis that we're talking about, where the left brain and the right brain fuse, can also be the vertical traversal of frequency from the 3D to the 4D to the 5D, which is like like you said, the fusion is actually a bi-directional communication between you and spirit, you and soul.
Mm-hmm.
It's two-way. It's like a two-way communication, bi-directional communication and connection. And so it's like the convergence is also the traversal. And then you go from being flattened by time. So believing that you're the timeline, the linear time, flat on a flat thought linear time with no dimension, to all of a sudden the time axis becomes the Z, and it adds the third dimension in the imaginary sphere that we're talking about. And now time is nonlinear because you're puncturing through consciousness with your time space traversal.
I love it. I love it. And this is so on key with one of my intentions for this last full moon. Mm-hmm. Was actually like, I used the word key to have the key to gain a deeper access to time. Or the, like, how is that illusion created? And you're helping me draw some dots in my mind. So this is going to sit with me really well, because I've been studying the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, which were created 38,000 years ago. So think about it, in the last 100 years, how far we've developed. It 38,000 years ago, he created these Emerald Tablets and left behind like this amazing knowledge. And he was here for a time before that, right, creating the planet and basically helping, this is the as far as I understand it, helping the very infancy of man become conscious and be able to grow. So he
are you familiar with David Lyon?
David Lyon, no.
No, I think he channels Thoth.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So you might want to check out his work. I caught him on a summit, and I really dug his energy. I haven't actually seen him channel. It was just him. But maybe check him out, because if you're going into Thoth, he might have some codes for you.
And by the way, anybody watching, we could be completely wrong about all of this, and we could just be making shit up, like totally like accept any kind of like, you guys are nuts. Go for it. Like I am out of my mind. I wouldn't say crazy. Crazy comes from the word from fractured. Actually, I wouldn't even say crazy, because crazy comes from the word fractured. Fracture comes from the word fractal. And when we break it down, the hologram is just a fractal that's projecting itself. So yeah, I guess in some ways then crazy would be an accurate 3 steps removed. Out of my mind, because I don't live by what my mind tells me to do anymore. I just I check in with it, but it's more of what the vibe is for me. So totally feel free to like
everything we're saying.
Use your own. You are your best doctor. You are your best shaman. You are your best friend. You are your best nutritionist. You are your best lover. You are your best guide. So if it vibes with you, dang, awesome. If it doesn't vibe with you, doesn't empower you, I might say, then come up with something else and let us know what that is, because I may change my perspective. Mm-hmm. So it was David Lyon.
Yeah, David Lyon on Instagram at Lionism, LIONISM.
Perfect. Yeah, I'll check that out.
Yeah, and then check him on YouTube. He's got an activation that really set me on fire too. So, yeah.
Beautiful.
you brought up a thing that I wanted to like see if I could jam a little bit more on time. So what exactly are you looking to empower with time? Like what was the inspiration, or what was like I want to dive into time and master more time stuff?
Yeah. So, I mean, it came into me for phases, and the new awareness came from listening to the tablets and talks about this way to reveal it. And I was like, okay, before I start doing any of his incantations or any of his practices, I'm going to listen to the whole set of Emerald tablets. It's 7 hours long, the one that I've been listening to. I made it about halfway through. And then I got sidetracked on a few other talk things. So I'm almost done with the tablets, but I think that there's going to be 3 hours of like breaking them down into like ways people can actually retain it. So that was like, boom, like I heard that and it just set a vibration off in my chest. Like this is something to really integrate and understand and practice and understand. It's a part of my next level. So I was writing down my intentions for the full moon or the new moon while I was listening. So I was like, okay, boom, that was like divine order. And I think what's happened is I've been able to create like a massive amount of time for myself where like, dude, yesterday, I'm going to just pop down this list. This is my typical day in Costa Rica. Yesterday, I actually wrote down like how my day started. So wake up 4:30 in the morning because of the circadian rhythm of the planet. And before this, if you saw me at 4:30 in the morning, maybe I was going to Kundalini or something like that. But otherwise, I was probably still out, like from the night before.
Yeah.
5:30, I'm up at the temple that's being built, so the Temple of Illumination, and I'm watching the sunrise over the mountains. Then by 6:30, coffee, vegan cheesecake, and then I grabbed Emily and I like carried her and I jumped threw in the pool. So we like swimming at 6:30 in the morning, already like I'm in the pool playing like a little freaking kid. And a lot of stuff in between. But just to give you like outline, 7:30, I've met with all the builders to go through the whole entire punch list, like the details left, what's going on. By 9 o'clock, I drive into town, checked out a new breakfast spot. And then by 10:30, shopping at organic farmers market, getting veggies for the week. Then I went for a walk on the beach, then conversation catch up with my father. By 2 o'clock, I'm eating mangoes and signing some documents for a car lease out here. By 3 o'clock, reviewing architect drawings and custom woodwork and closets and everything. 4 o'clock, sitting down with Emily, like discussing the entire vision for the temple, breaking it down, taking notes, like all the things that we're going to bring to it and create as a result of it. 5 o'clock, hike back up to the temple to see what's been accomplished. Then go watch the sunset underneath a 1,200-year-old banyan tree with monkeys all around me, have a makeout sesh, like total amazing. Then by 9 o'clock or no 7 o'clock, I'm back and I'm just hanging out with Emily. Like I have nothing left to do for the day. Like I was able to do more in one day. My time like has stretched and I'm able to like, and I didn't even realize it happened. And all of a sudden it's nighttime. I'm like, I did more in one day than it probably would have taken me a week to do this much in my old life. So I see that I'm creating time. I'm not just bending. I'm like creating this time in my life. And I don't understand how time has changed for me. Like it just completely shifted. And I know that once I have a clearer, if I get access of that understanding, or at least overstanding, or some kind of understanding, I don't know, then I can drop back into eternity at any moment, which I've experienced during Kundalini Awakening. So that was what compelled me to do this, to seek more information. Long answer to your question.
No, like you got me thinking about. I was just looking in for a page that I wrote a long. Here it is. Let me.
And while we're doing this, everybody, feel free to stretch your neck like I am. This feels really good.
Yeah.
Take a breath. Become present. Be playful. Be like a little kid. You can go. It's nice to shake. Keep the body moving. I know we've been on for 50 minutes already, and it feels like a moment.
Jesus.
Honestly, it feels like we just jumped on.
Yeah. So what do I want to do? I want to. Lots to say. So the shift, once, I don't know if I'm necessarily talking to you or just talking to everyone at this point.
Yeah.
So when we go from like animal consciousness, that time is not a tool, to human consciousness where now we're starting to, like the Mayans, we're starting to create the calendar, we're starting to create this like tool of time to start to segment and track and delineate and like continuity. We create a continuity of history that way. We create like this tool to start to understand ourselves with time. Like time is a tool at that point. At that point of our evolution, we're still two-dimensional in our thoughts. So thoughts are, so before Einstein's theory of relativity, time and space were separate concepts. There was time and there was space. And so from that perspective, me in time was me on an XY coordinate system where I'm writing time on a Y axis, and it's just this one line, and I'm flat, and that's past, present, future. Einstein's relativity combines space and time into space-time, and it radically shifts the paradigm of human perception of their relationship to time and space. So now it's not just I'm writing time, I'm writing space and time at the same time. and so what happens
actually writing space and time in the now.
In the now, yes. In the now, but from another perspective, it's like you're creating time as you move through space.
Yes.
So what happens is our evolution, our intelligence is upgraded from 2 dimensions to 3 dimensions. And now the time axis, instead of being flattened in 2 dimensions in a linear fashion, all of a sudden we add the Z axis. So now we have more. Now we have depth. We have depth to our past and our future. Instead of being a flat line, we're like we said, we're traversing vibration and traversing waves in 3 dimensions, in 3-dimensional space. And what how do I want to, what I want to try to do here, if you bear with me for 1 second, I'm going to try to do something on the fly here that's kind of cool, if I can do it.
Yeah, so it's just kind of just some things that popped while you're doing that. I'll just kind
Yeah.
of speak to like three dimensions. Think length, width, and depth, right?
Yes.
So um, time and space, it's always where I am when I am there, and that's why they become linked. So it's a measurement of space that actually gives us the measurement of time, right? We're measuring how the sun moves throughout the sky. We're measuring how our perception of time is, and it's even not even the sun that's moving throughout the sky. It's actually the Earth spinning. Although we're moving through galaxies here, so the time and space being linked is such a huge way to get access to something that's even more deep. So you got something ready to show though. So just thought I'd keep the vibe going.
Oh yeah, awesome. Yeah, exactly. So I don't know. Can you see this on your screen? I can't. I can make it
Yeah,
that big. Or, yeah, I can
let
take our
me.
face off.
Yeah, yeah. I can't full screen this, but I can just zoom. So yeah, go ahead.
So when did I draw this? This was years ago. This is from this is 2013 probably.
This is you standing on Einstein's shoulders, right?
Yeah. This is from my day books. So this is like trying to explain what you're talking about, where you're expanding time for yourself. So the second section here, and I don't think you can see me actually pointing. Oh yeah, you can.
No. Yeah, there you are.
So this section right here, this is the illustration of the mind self versus the moment. And this is what creates relativity. This is what creates the...
What's the mind self? Just let's define that.
That's what would probably be referred to as ego or identity, okay. Self-conscious, your self-image.
Mm-hmm.
And so we can illustrate here, when your self-image is smaller than the moment or bigger than the moment, it informs different experiences of time based off of that relative relationship. So the first one here would, let's see, how do I, identity, thought, what am I saying here? Okay. So now let me shift down here because I'm doing this on the fly. I forgot. I haven't read this in years.
Well, yeah, before you jump to the next one. So
yeah.
I think these boxes, what you're showing is like explaining why, like when I'm a child, the days lasted forever.
There you go.
And then as I became an adult, the days seem to go by more quickly. And I hear that people that are older always saying that, like, oh my gosh, time just flies. You don't know where it goes. And what I found is as I become more childlike, it seems like the days have now, my time ability has created, like it's expanded because now maybe my ego has subsided to a degree. I've had less identifying with things less.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you. You got me back focused. So that actually connects with the top here, the top section. So there's two different relationships that you can have. Either the mind self is the center right here, or the thought of the moment is the center with the mind self observing it or watching it. And so the speed of the moment, the speed increases when the size of the mind increases, and the focus is when the size of the mind decreases, and it actually so the speed of the moment increases with the size of the mind, and the focus increases with the decrease in the size of the mind.
And so the size of the mind, that is my, how much I identify with my mind self.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That accurate?
Mm-hmm. And so now in here, what that's telling me here is, this is cool, trying to decrypt or decode my
Thinking from,
yeah.
from
So
6 years ago.
yeah. So we have a standard past, present, future, and then when the okay, so when you have a smaller mind self, you're taking up less time. So you're just in the now. So this is kind of like baby. This is like more closer to the baby. Is like you have no perception of past and future. You're just kind of in this zone of the now.
Mm-hmm.
And then as you get older, all of a sudden you're carrying with you this thought of your identity, which is the past up until now.
Or my memory,
Your memory.
which is really just a bunch of stories that I tell myself.
Exactly.
Which really doesn't exist in the now. It's just this illusion that I've created of who I am.
Yeah. Which makes the mind self bigger. And when the mind self is bigger, the speed increases. The speed increases because there's the mind self and then there's the moment. That's how I delineate the stick figure from the cube.
Right. And I might say the perception of the speed increases, or the illusion.
Yes. All the way till here where you have that moment, like an awakening moment or some death event, or like a big event that makes you question your whole life, right? You've probably had that in your life, in moments where you're just like, what the hell am I even doing? And your whole life is put into perspective because now all of a sudden your mind self is taking up the past and the future at the same time. And so you have this life thought.
Yeah. And that actually lays out perfectly in this Kundalini awakening experience that I had, where it was like this moment of omnipotence.
Mm-hmm.
So I would even stretch that life thought to eternity. So it was like it was time just ceased to exist in that moment.
Yeah.
And I wasn't identified with anything particularly. I was just aware of everything particularly. Mm-hmm. I was nothing and I was everything at the same time. Right. And this lays out perfectly in this example.
And you were bigger, way bigger than the moment in that example. So the 3D moment was like you on the couch or something, or you on the yoga mat or whatever it was, right?
Mm-hmm.
But in your consciousness, in your mind, you were that moment plus everything else, past, present, future, and so the grant, like you were larger than the moment, larger than life.
I experienced eternity in 25 minutes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
In this short amount of time, right?
Exactly. Okay. And then this one connects with what you were saying before. So when the mind self, how do I say this? So the mind self becomes now. So basically when the mind self shrinks to the moment, there's no additional thoughts, only mind self thoughts exist. So the moment,
it's like a pure state of observance.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then when the mind self when the mind self shrinks, when the mind self shrinks and the moment expands, all of a sudden you have awareness of time. Thoughts are louder. That's when you get like a chaotic mind. And that's where you feel the monsters. That's where you're scared of monsters, because the thoughts are bigger than yourself, because your mind self has shrunk, but the moment feels much bigger than you. That's this one.
Yeah, where I feel like I'm going to be overcome by something out of my control or something.
Exactly.
Or fear state starts to set in.
Yeah. And then mind self constricts and the moment shrinks. Mind self shrinks, moment shrinks. That's basically flow. That's where your mission mode, work, no mind, focus, quantum mind, no time, no mind self, one thought. It's like you're on point and there's nothing else. That's flow.
I am the now.
Exactly. And then when the mind self expands and the moment expands, that's when you get time abundance, thoughts are inconsequential, entire life, infinite imagination, grandness, revelation, realization, focus on now, everything, time awareness is infinite. So the number one was the child in love. Number two is the child in fear. Number three is computer program. And number four is computer God. And I probably have a really interesting explanation why I'm using computer here, but that'll take a long time to explain, I think. Dual quantum perception, oneness. It's when logic, because I say computer is logic. I'll just give you the explanation now because I can remember it. The logic, the left brain to me is more the computer, and the right brain is more the child. And so it's a relationship between a child and a computer, to me, in my story, in the way that I metaphor my imagination and my relationship to these things. So to understand oneness, the computer has to be empowered and the child has to be empowered, the logic and the emotion. And when they're both, when you can be the mind self expanded and the moment expanded, that's when those things connect to me. At least in looking at this work from years ago. Oh my God.
Yeah, well, I mean, it seems. Can you pull that up real quick again? So, yeah, so the idea, what I'm seeing is the correlation that being in sync between the mind self and the moment, whether contracted or expanded, having that harmony is the key element back to balance. Because you're looking, like in that case, I'm either in that flow state or I can be pure awareness. I think that fourth one is really the pure observer state. Whereas the third one would be this state where I actually am more in the interaction with and experience. It's more experiential and being part of it. So it's coming through to me. Is that about right? Feel free to disagree with me and tell me I'm wrong.
Yeah, I mean, flow state is interesting when you actually look at it from because flow state is incredibly pleasurable. I don't want to I love it. I love flow state, and it is amazing. To live in that. But interesting because from a simulation perspective, from like reality as a simulation, when you're in flow state, there really is, it's pure Wonka River, because there is really no mistakes. There's no like and that's why I said it's more computer programmed, because it's perfect. It's perfection. It's literally, there's nothing that needs to be touched, in a sense of when you're in flow state, it's like a perfect computer program just playing itself out.
Yeah. Yeah. And I can see how, with the way your mind works, that the computer thing really makes it like, yeah, that's how it is. And I, like, the way my mind works, I'm like, I think of like a meandering river, or a beautiful woman walking across a room, and just how just the flow of it. Yeah. And how it's actually me knowing that there is no mistakes. Like, it's actually happening. It's the moment I start judging myself, that the mistake becomes created, because now I'm believing it to be true. But that's a whole nother time for us to get on. That was really awesome. That was really neat. I think, can you send me that? Will you send me that?
Of course.
Take a picture of it, shoot it to me. Yeah. And I think what would be really helpful in everything, like when you carry this stuff out, like, is having that definition of like, what is mind state, and having it really tangible. Like, that's where, like, okay, if I can grasp what that is, then I can follow the whole entire thing. Yeah. And kind of sometimes I'm guessing. So that like, and you've got it. Like, it's clear that you've got a clear knowingness about it, or an understanding about it, and it's just a matter of making that bridge. But that's, you put on paper something I've been experiencing, and put it in a way that can be explained to someone. And I think that there's a lot of art to that. So thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah,
it's I think it's finally time that now that audiences are starting to form around this stuff. It's like, I have so much here. Like, I'm flipping through it right now, just looking at it. It's like all of this stuff that was me just like trying to understand it myself. Yeah. Wow. So yeah, I just need to figure out a way to deliver it, because I've thought about, how can I package this, or how can I put it together, and like redoing it in like digital form, and I always just procrastinating, like, cause it just doesn't, I don't know. And yeah.
Yeah, I think I have that quite a bit, and I have like scenarios in my mind of how do I get this across, and any way that I deliver it is the way, until there's another way, right? So that judgment thing going on, and the thing that I think happens for me, which I think happens for you as well, is like, so much new stuff is constantly coming through, that it's like, well, it's like it's always like fall, it's always season of harvest. And it's like, and I'm always planting seeds at the same time that I'm harvesting. So there's always like an abundance of new thought. So prioritizing which ones to like really make and bring to the world. For me, sometimes it's like, why would I stop? Why would I stop my flow to recreate this thing? Because there's more, and how important it is for me to stop and share this stuff. I think that may be something that happens for you as well.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's that flow, like I really don't like watching myself, like previous lives, or even when I was doing acting for a while, I couldn't stand like watching my part. I get maybe too self-critical, or just, I don't know. But
I was just going to point out, like Michelangelo, Benjamin Franklin, they didn't do most of their work. They had their apprentices. They would say, here's my sketch of it. Now go package it in a way that we can do. Right.
So this is putting out there.
The question is the who's.
Yeah.
right? Not the what's or the hows. It's like who could be really good at this? So that's something that we have in common. So maybe we can put our heads together and see who may be able to help illustrate this stuff. Because like I have like cartoon ideas to explain how like beliefs create this reality.
Yeah.
And that really show and illustrate childhood and how, and I have it written down in a bulleted list, but if I were to speak it out, somebody's not going to hear what I say. Back to our beginning of our conversation, and then they'll hear what they think they heard, and they're not going to see what I'm explaining. They'll see what they think I'm explaining.
Yeah.
So once you can illustrate it in this other way, so you have a big step of this with the drawing here. So it's maybe just a matter of calling in those individuals. So maybe you're watching right now. Maybe if you're watching right now and you're like, I would love to help illustrate this and create this in a way that people would really be able to grasp onto it, please reach out to us.
Yes.
Because this is a really, really mind-bending thinking that when explained properly, as it's explained properly, and in multiple facets, that will awaken consciousness across the planet, and this will change the way everybody experiences reality.
Yeah.
And just great stuff.
Yeah.
Thank you. What was there something else you were going to say there? Because I feel like I kind of jumped in with that.
No, like I love that idea. I can tell you the false attempts of feeling alone with this, of trying to do something with this, has always come down to like an order of operations, like doing it in the right order. Like, oh yeah, if I share this, but people don't understand what the mind self is, so I gotta come up with something to explain what that. Oh, but then they won't understand because I use this word to do this, and I'm like, but where do I start? Like, how do I start this? And I think I have that. That's my theories. That's my three. I think we talked about it on the podcast that is going to come out. My three theories that correspond to 3D, 4D, and 5D. That's kind of like my foundation. That's the map of sorts. That's the like. Let's start with this, and then we can really start to dive in and understand these nuances that don't really matter, but they help in understanding. But yeah, I agree. And then there's also the perfectionist, which is all judgment and hypercriticism and all of that just unrelenting perfectionism for why it's not good enough, why it will never be good enough, when I have the idealism, the aims of like put the whole of humanity on my shoulders and I'm going to upgrade everything by myself. And this is how, like, you know, like that's the pressure I put on myself when I was doing this, is like, I'm going to come up with the ultimate thing that is just going to like, and that's like the masterpiece, right? Like the artist is after, but it's all fueled from that perfectionism. So, but I've grown a lot since that. So it's time. And I think consciousness and people are ready for this, like obviously, or else I wouldn't have been called to bring it on air with you.
Yeah. Thank you for bringing that all up. I mean, I suffered quite a bit from the perfectionism thing, and then started learning detachment quite a bit more. And once I started learning the detachment, it was like, then I started realizing, you know what, everything's just perfect how it is. Yeah. Even if the outcome isn't what I thought I wanted, right? I could say, I should have said it this way. I should have said it that way. It doesn't fucking matter anyway. It really doesn't, like at a higher awareness. So returning to that level of awareness, and then like look at Einstein's work here, you're building on top of it. And Stephen Hawking like changed a lot of thinking as well, which we didn't even discuss in here. Or if you think about genetics, and somebody put that out there, and it was a starting point, but then epigenetics came along. Right? So it's putting these baselines with the knowingness that at some point there'll be a deeper awareness, a grander awareness, or a deeper understanding about things, and really having access to that. So doing it with that attitude, there's no ego around it. And that gives me a lot of permission and makes me feel much better about all these pieces and delivering my work. Because at the end of the day, like, if I'm wrong and somebody's got a better scenario, like, I'm going to take that.
Yeah.
And I'm only right for as long as I say I'm right, until there's a greater awareness. And that's always going to be the case, I think. If I speak in absolutes, like, say that there's an always. So that it's just the game. It's beautiful. And thank you for bringing all that stuff out. And I love that what we talked about on the podcast there. And I think we should, at some point, well, maybe you come down to Costa Rica for a couple of days, and we'll just look at what you have, and we'll look at what I have, and we'll draw it out. Maybe somebody watching this wants to come down to Costa Rica with us and put it into a presentation to be able to explain it and help us button it up, so that at any level of awareness, somebody's going to be able to walk the path through. So we can bring them to the beginning from, like, what I call Dronesville, like, where I'm not even conscious, like, where the world is happening completely to me. Somebody would be able to walk them from that stage to the stage of awareness, where all of a sudden they're like, holy shit, this is all, I'm creating every single moment of this. And I get how it's happening, and I can make the choices to change it, and beyond wherever my awareness is around this right now. Yeah. Like the glimpses of the God self that I get to experience, and then come back and be human, and then glimpses of God self, and come back and be human, glimpses of God self, come back and be, and that's like, I keep bouncing between these worlds. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? I know how to do that. Why am I falling back into this illusion sometimes? What's going on? Yeah. So maybe somebody can help us with that. Maybe somebody watching. Yeah. So
for sure.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for your time. Was there anything else you wanted to touch on before we jumped off? I was thinking we were only going to go for like an hour, but
yeah, usually they go a little longer. No, I think if we're going to do this on the semi-reg, do we decide on Mondays for Monday night?
Monday works good for you?
Yeah. Monday, do we 5 PST, I think we said, or 6 PST?
Yeah. 5 PST, 6 CST. Yeah. Because I'm always in standard time.
Yeah. I think it'd be cool to get some, more directed questions from the audience or from the group, if possible. But otherwise, we can just jam. I love jamming. And maybe I'll have more pages to show. I mean, I got enough content here. Yeah.
We have no lack of stuff to talk about, and I would like to have these us having these conversations regardless of how many people tune in. Like, it's a great experience for me. I hope you feel the same, and whoever watches, I think, will get a ton of value out of it. So the people that are vibing with it will be attracted to it. But the more that people want to interact, and if we get more people that would like to be on as well, having these conversations, we can use like Zoom and have 4 people on at a time. I don't know if you can do that with this StreamYard, but we could always bring on more people at a time as well. Or we have somebody in comments, or I bounce off, somebody comes on, or you bounce off, somebody comes on. Yeah. So this is open dialogue for anybody that's like, there we go. So I don't know who that Facebook user is.
Yeah, there's a weird thing with Facebook group permissions that they have to actually give us permission to use only in groups, which is weird.
Crystal.
This is Crystal
Glenn. Yeah, thank you, Crystal. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you for being on with us.
Yeah.
And exciting time. So if anybody has any ideas or questions, please just drop them in, and we will get to this this Monday.
Yeah. There's a lot of gold here on the spreadsheet that we can dive into. We got no shortage, no scarcity of content.
Yeah, I got plenty of questions.
Yeah,
and so many answers that are meaningless. So perfect, brother. You have a great night. We'll talk on Monday and probably sooner.
Yep.
Cheers.
See you later,
Thank
guys.
you.
Yep. Bye.